Amidst the vast desert, a group of brutal robbers has placed giant jet engines. The machine blasts up a fierce artificial sandstorm. Their goal is to stop the convoy undergoing an emergency evacuation, carrying hundreds of lives to the safe green zone. Follow along with me. The story begins when an oil refinery in the Middle East is repeatedly attacked by a group of rebellious insurgents. Within just 1 week, the refinery suffered 2 attacks. Their main purpose is to force the refinery to hand over control. But messing with America's interests isn't easy. A special forces team is quickly dispatched to rescue those still trapped there. The commander of the special forces team is Feng. Here, Feng meets Professor Chang, the refinery's director. She quickly reports the situation and states that nearly 500 people, including staff and children, are currently waiting to be evacuated. In another development, Chris, a muscular guy, is relaxing by practicing golf alone on his pickup truck. Suddenly, a car carrying a few rather aggressive-looking guys appears. The first one to get out is Henry, Chris's younger brother. He has come to deliver the money share from the previous job, but inwardly, he is also troubled, not knowing where to start. On the other side, Feng has completed the preparations. The plan is to evacuate in 2 waves, one departing at 9 a.m., the other at 4 p.m. After carefully considering the weather conditions and routes, they realize there is only one possible road, the area nicknamed the Death Zone. The journey is expected to last about 8 hours. Feng drives the lead vehicle. Each vehicle is equipped with a radio to maintain communication. In the air, 2 helicopters circle overhead to monitor and protect the convoy. Initially, the journey goes quite smoothly. Feng is arranged to travel with his daughter, about whom he always carries a heavy sense of guilt. As the vehicle enters the death zone, Feng reminds his daughter to fasten her seatbelt as a precaution. After traveling some distance, they see 2 cars blocking the road. Feng's daughter thinks it's a warning about mines, but with his extensive experience, Feng immediately recognizes it's a trap. He explains, "They want us to stop, then they'll rush out from both sides. If we leave the vehicle, they'll attack." Feng doesn't stop the car, he drives straight forward. As predicted, the 2 blocking cars were rigged with bombs. Mines explode consecutively, turning the entire stretch of road into a sea of fire obscured by smoke and dust. Fortunately, with his seasoned command experience, Feng managed the situation in time, leading the convoy through the dangerous area without serious losses. However, upon reaching the canyon ahead, the entire convoy suddenly encounters a fierce sandstorm. The strange thing is, according to the weather forecast, there were absolutely no signs of a storm today. Feng senses something unusual, but if they stop to wait for the storm to pass, they will miss the evacuation schedule. Anyway, forecasts aren't always accurate. He decides to continue moving forward. The further they go, the stronger the storm becomes, with sand-laden winds blowing fiercely, reducing visibility to almost zero. The drivers are forced to turn on their headlights to navigate. However, the communication system between the vehicles starts malfunctioning. Just then, Feng's daughter sitting beside him glimpses a black object flash past in the sand screen. At that very moment, 4 dirt bikes and an armored vehicle suddenly appear, closing in on the rescue convoy. One of them approaches vehicle number 8, the one carrying Professor Chang. They shoot a rope with an iron hook onto the front of the vehicle and immediately attach a ladder to climb onto the roof. They detonate explosives on the dirt bike, causing it to explode, fly up, and crash violently into the front of the vehicle. One man smashes the front windshield, rappels down, and breaks into the vehicle. The other kicks open that needs you to navigate. Meanwhile, the 2 hijacked vehicles are taken in different directions. Those inside are all hooded with black bags, taken away like prisoners of war. And now, the mastermind behind the kidnapping is officially revealed. It is Chris and his crew. While on the helicopter, Feng realizes that the storm his convoy encountered earlier was not a natural phenomenon as he suspected, but an artificial storm created by the kidnapping group. They used high-power blowers to create a gale-force wind to hinder pursuit. Flying a bit further, Feng spots Chris's convoy moving on the highway. Immediately, a fierce firefight breaks out. From the helicopter, Agent Feng fires down below. Henry and his crew return fire fiercely. An off-road vehicle in Chris's group is hit and explodes violently. Henry quickly directs another vehicle to lead the way to continue their escape. Thanks to having hostages on board, Chris's group temporarily escapes the helicopter's fire. However, this group is forced to stop and engage directly. Even so, their light weapons are completely outmatched by the heavy firepower from the helicopter. In the critical moment, one of Chris's support vehicles appears, carrying a cannon. Facing this terrifying firepower, Feng's helicopter is forced to withdraw to avoid heavy damage. 1 stone. On his way back to the village, Chris is accidentally spotted by Feng's helicopter. Feng intends to follow, but the helicopter is low on fuel, so he is forced to land and walk to the village. Arriving back at the village, Chris feels betrayed. He angrily punches a mirror, feeling helpless. By 4 o'clock, still seeing no sign of Henry bringing the money as promised, Chris starts getting impatient. To kill time, he goes outside to play ball with a boy from the village. At the same time, Feng has reached the village gate but doesn't dare enter yet. Suddenly, the ball Chris is playing with hits Feng's leg. Looking at his attire and appearance, Chris quickly realizes Feng is the Chinese agent Owen mentioned. However, he maintains a nonchalant demeanor as if he knows nothing. After Feng leaves the village, Chris waits and waits, but still doesn't see his brother bring the money as arranged. Sensing something is wrong, he decides to return to Owen's base to find Henry and get his payment. Feng notices Chris's strange behavior and borrows his off-road vehicle to follow him. Chris reaches the base only to find it abandoned, completely deserted. Going deeper inside, he is stunned silent upon seeing his brother's body lying in the middle of the floor, alongside several other corpses. Seeing the wounds on Henry, Chris assumes he was killed by the Chinese agent. Sensing someone following, Chris quickly hides in a corner and suddenly attacks Feng from behind as he enters. Without a word, the two charge at each other fiercely. They are evenly matched, trading blows wildly. During the fight, Chris pulls out a knife to attack, but Feng manages to dodge each time. Both have reasons to hate the other. Feng accuses Chris of killing his men, while Chris believes Feng killed his brother. Each carries their own pain, their own grudge, so neither is willing to back down. After fighting until tired, Feng starts wanting to talk, to resolve things rationally. But before he can lower his tone, a group of French mercenaries suddenly bursts in. Feng quickly pulls the pin on the mine Chris has in hand, causing them to panic and flee in disarray. However, Feng predicts they will surely return to attack. Chris doesn't believe it at first, but less than a minute later, bullets rain in from outside. The two hastily close the door and find cover. Feng primes mines. Chris throws them out to counterattack. After a period of intense fighting and several near-death experiences, the French mercenary group finally retreats. Now, Feng points his gun at Chris, demanding he reveal the real reason he is here. Chris replies bluntly, "If I'm dead, you'll never know the truth." Unable to extract anything, Feng has to concede. They step outside but find Chris's vehicle completely destroyed. Chris wants both to rescue the hostages and avenge his brother. Realizing they share the same goal, Feng and Chris decide to cooperate, becoming a team. At the oil refinery, Owen has brought Professor Chong. He and his group occupy the place, trying to restart the refinery system to seize the resources. But none of them know how to operate it because they lack the access codes. Helpless, they are forced to drag Professor Chong out for questioning. Owen says that the people who used to work here, his friends, died without receiving anything. He came just to take back what belonged to them. No longer wanting to argue, Owen demands the professor reveal the code to start the refinery. However, she refuses and explains it's a complex process. Owen doesn't let Professor Chong finish explaining. They immediately drag out her son to threaten her. Seeing her son facing death, she confesses the USB is in her bag, but she doesn't remember where she left the bag. While the two are enjoying themselves, Professor Chang's phone, forgotten in May's bag, suddenly rings. May answers, but the other end is silent. Unbeknownst to them, it is Owen tracing the call's signal to pinpoint their location. While the children are having dinner, Chris and Feng step outside to talk privately. Chris hands Feng a notebook May left behind. Thinking May is Feng's girlfriend, Chris is surprised to hear Feng admit May is his biological daughter. Their father-daughter relationship isn't great. Chris encourages him, saying nothing is impossible to mend. But Feng sighs. "You don't have a family, you wouldn't understand. A battle on the battlefield isn't necessarily as complicated as matters at home." Chris also opens up about his past. The conversation is interrupted when Feng hears a strange noise. Sensing danger, he immediately signals May to take the children and hide. As predicted, Owen's henchmen have laid an ambush. The target is the USB in May's bag. Chris and Feng split up, each heading in a different direction to hunt down the enemy. Although the attackers are equipped with modern weapons, they are no match for the two seasoned former agents. With their superior combat skills, they easily take down the enemies one by one. When the villagers discover the attack, they don't just stand by. Even though they are just civilians, they grab sticks and machetes to stand up and protect their village. Amidst the chaos, one of the attackers pulls out a grenade, threatening to blow everything up if the bag isn't handed over. Without hesitation, Chris rushes into the house, grabs May's bag, and throws it outside. May cries out, trying to stop him, blaming him for handing over something so important. But Chris just says one thing. This is my home. These people are my family. I will do anything to protect them. At this point, Chris finally asks May what's in the bag. May sighs and says that USB contains the activation code for the oil flow system. If they get it, they can divert hundreds of millions of cubic meters of oil elsewhere. The oil will go through pipelines straight to the sea, pouring into giant ships waiting there. If that happens, this will be the largest oil heist in history. They must stop Owen at all costs. On the other side, having obtained the USB, Owen forces Professor Chang to reactivate the refinery system, starting to pump oil onto the giant ships waiting offshore. According to calculations, pumping all the oil will take 24 hours. Assigning the task of guarding the professor and her son to his subordinates, he declares that after getting the oil, he will eliminate both of them to silence them. As Chris and Feng approach the refinery, the guards spot them and immediately raise the alarm. The soldiers use heavy weapons, firing relentlessly, but Feng doesn't flinch. He drives the giant tanker, smashing through barriers, crashing through all obstacles, charging straight into the refinery yard like a rampaging steel beast. Without hesitation, both jump out of the truck and charge into battle. However, being inside an oil refinery where a single spark could cause everything to explode, neither side dares to use guns. Coordination between the two leaves the henchmen utterly overwhelmed. Finally, they break into the control center, where Professor Chang and her son are being held. Feng throws a knife towards the guard. Although he dodges it, he is distracted. Chris immediately swings a fire extinguisher, hitting him squarely on the head. Feng rushes to rescue the professor and her son. But it's not over yet. The bald guy gets up, clearly not an easy opponent. Even though Feng and Chris use all their martial arts moves, the guy skillfully dodges. When close combat proves ineffective, all three switch to a gunfight. But after a while, they run out of ammo. The bald guy still holds a machine gun, hunting the two like a cat playing with mice. Chris cleverly signals, then stands up to draw his attention. He shouts, "You're out of ammo. Time for you to log out." At that moment, Feng attacks the guy from behind. Both men crash through the glass door. Chris leaves Feng to deal with the bald guy, while he immediately chases after Owen, who is now fleeing towards the demilitarized zone. If he reaches it, he will likely escape. But all vehicles in the area have been taken by Owen. Chris has no means to pursue. Just when he's desperate, May suddenly appears in Chris's old beat-up car. Although the car looks like it's about to fall apart, it's better than nothing. The two immediately set off. Detecting the pursuit, Owen activates the defensive system's mome, lying in wait. When the guy appears, he suddenly swings a binding rope, catches his legs, and spins him around. Feng lets him crash hard against a metal frame, instantly logging him out. No time to save state. Having dealt with the bald guy, Feng immediately goes to the professor and her son to ask them to shut down the refinery's operating system. However, Professor Chang reveals that Owen had previously destroyed the USB. Stopping the system is now impossible. His specialized off-road vehicle, this poses no difficulty for him. Conversely, Chris and May only have a normal car, completely unsuitable for this treacherous terrain. Nevertheless, May insists on trusting her incredible driving skills. The consequences come unexpectedly fast. The car loses control, flips over multiple times, and ends up as a pile of scrap metal on the mountainside. Luckily, they have great fortune. Thanks to ancestral blessings, the two miraculously survive. Just then, Feng arrives in the massive tanker truck like a savior. However, the enemy is too far ahead, and the giant truck is too cumbersome to catch up. As they are about to cross the border into the demilitarized zone, meaning they are close to escaping safely, Feng cannot just watch. He suddenly boosts the truck's thrusters, deciding on a life-or-death gamble. Upon seeing Owen's convoy, Feng doesn't hesitate, ramming straight into one of their fuel tankers. The collision causes the tanker to explode like a bomb, collapsing, setting off a chain reaction of explosions among the other vehicles in a domino effect. A horrific scene, smoke and fire engulf the entire border area. Owen's nearby vehicle is also caught in the blast. He luckily survives, but his driver has been roasted. In a panic, he pulls the driver's body out, takes the wheel, and speeds off to escape. Feng continues the pursuit, but the giant tanker, moving too fast, gets its wheels stuck deep in the sand. Feng struggles with all his might just to control it. The brakes fail, the truck can't stop. The only option is to ram straight into Owen's vehicle. The two vehicles hurtle towards the cliff edge. In the end, Owen meets his fate, dying instantly. Feng and May luckily survive, but are battered and bruised. Hair messy, clothes torn. While struggling to get up, an old family photo falls out of Feng's torn pocket. May is stunned when she sees the photo. In that moment, she finally understands why her father was always absent. He hadn't abandoned her. He was doing the work of an unsung hero. Though far from home, Feng always carried the image of his daughter and family in his heart. That's men for you. Not good at expressing affection verbally, but always keeping what's important in their hearts. In that moment, Mei no longer blames her father. She throws her arms around Feng. Just as the two are sharing a touching moment like a scene from a Korean drama, Chris suddenly appears, grabbing Feng's leg, provoking unexpected laughter. Seeing he's still alive,